When most people picture San Francisco, they think of postcard-perfect scenes, the sharp hills stacked with houses, the clang of cable cars rolling down the tracks, or the bright orange shape of the Golden Gate Bridge rising out of the fog. But long before these landmarks became symbols of the city, there was another attraction that captured the imagination of thousands. It was a place so unusual, so huge, and so full of life that it seemed almost impossible to exist. This wonder was called the Sutro Baths. Long ago, the Sutro Baths were celebrated as the largest indoor swimming complex in the entire world. It wasn't just a set of pools, it was a massive palace made of glass, iron, and water. The building stretched across the coastline like a gleaming jewel, reflecting sunlight and the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. For ordinary people, workers, families, and children, this place felt like stepping into another world. It offered fun, excitement, and a break from the hard struggles of everyday life. Today, almost nothing remains of that once glorious dream. When visitors walk along the coast near the Cliff House, they only see broken concrete, silent staircases, and piles of moss-covered stones. The sound of waves echoes through empty spaces where thousands once laughed, splashed, and cheered. The ruins look mysterious and lonely, as if they are holding on to old secrets. People often stop and ask the same question: how could something so massive and so beloved disappear so completely? To understand the answer, we have to travel back more than a century and a half, to a time filled with excitement, danger, and unbelievable change. It was the mid-1800s, during the wild rush for California gold, when people from all over the world arrived hoping to become rich overnight. And among those dreamers was a man whose imagination was even bigger than his ambition: Adolf Heinrich Joseph Sutro, the arrival of a dreamer. In the year 1850, a ship sailed into California carrying a young German immigrant named Adolf Sutro. Unlike many others on the boat, he wasn't a miner dreaming of gold, nor a gambler hoping for fast luck. Adolf Sutro, born in what is now Germany, had studied mining engineering and business. He understood machines, tunnels, and ventilation systems. He had big ideas, and he believed he could use his talent to solve problems instead of digging for treasure. While thousands of hopeful miners rushed into the mountains with picks and shovels, Sutro didn't follow them. Instead, he observed the mining world from a different angle. He noticed the danger these workers faced each day. Mines in the 1800s were not safe. Tunnels often flooded with water. Poisonous gases built up underground. Explosions and fires happened without warning. When miners were trapped below the surface, they had almost no hope of escape. Sutro knew this situation needed a change, and he believed he had the answer. During the 1860s, he traveled to Nevada, home of the Comstock Lode, one of the richest silver deposits in the world. There, he presented a bold idea. He wanted to dig a tunnel deep underground to drain water, clear deadly gases, and provide fresh air for miners. This engineering project would run for thousands of feet, cutting through solid rock and earth. Many people thought Sutro's plan was ridiculous, expensive, and impossible. But Sutro didn't give up. He spent years trying to convince investors to support his project. They didn't listen, until disaster struck. In 1869, an explosion and fire ripped through the Yellow Jacket mine, killing 35 miners. The tragedy shocked the region and exposed how dangerous the mines truly were. Suddenly, Sutro's tunnel didn't seem like a fantasy. It seemed like a lifeline. Investors began to pay attention. Workers believed in the project. Slowly, the pieces came together. Sutro created the Sutro Tunnel Company and raised money by selling shares. Construction began, and for years, workers dug, blasted, and carved their way through darkness. It was dangerous, slow, and full of setbacks, but Sutro never stopped pushing forward. Finally, in 1878, the incredible tunnel was finished. It stretched 3,600 feet, stood 10 feet wide, and reached nearly 1,600 feet below the surface. For miners, this tunnel changed everything. It helped make mining safer and allowed deeper digging. Sutro's stubborn determination had paid off, and he became a wealthy man, far wealthier than the average miner who spent years risking his life underground. But wealth wasn't Sutro's final goal. Unlike many rich men of the time, He didn't want to hide his success or build a mansion only for himself. He wanted to use his money to create something the public could enjoy, something that would bring happiness, learning, and beauty to ordinary people. A city builder. With a vision, when Adolf Sutro returned to San Francisco in the 1880s, he didn't settle into a quiet life. Instead, he began buying land across the city. So much land that some people claimed he eventually owned 1/12 of all San Francisco. But his most famous piece of property sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean. On 20 acres of land, high above where the waves smashed into the rocks, he created Sutro Heights, a public garden unlike anything the city had ever seen. The garden was filled with exotic plants, colorful flowers, detailed statues, and paths that twisted and curved through peaceful greenery. There was even a lookout tower that visitors could climb to see panoramic views of the ocean, the shoreline, and the faraway city skyline. What made Sutro different from other wealthy landowners was simple. He believed ordinary people deserved the same access to beauty as the rich. Instead of keeping his gardens private, he opened them to everyone for a small and affordable fee. Working-class families who lived in crowded neighborhoods could wander through peaceful gardens and feel like they were in a completely different world. This idea, sharing luxury with the public, became the heart of Sutro's legacy. In 1883, he purchased the iconic Cliff House, a restaurant perched dramatically on the edge of the cliffs. After a fire destroyed part of it, he rebuilt the structure into an even grander building. But even the Cliff House wasn't the masterpiece Sutro dreamed of. Down below the cliffs, hidden in a rocky cove, he saw something no one else did. While others saw a difficult piece of land battered by waves, Sutro saw potential. At first, he imagined creating an aquarium, a place where people could see ocean creatures up close. But the idea kept growing. Soon the aquarium turned into a plan for a promenade. Then it became the idea for a hotel. And eventually it transformed into something extraordinary, a gigantic public bathing palace inspired by the ancient Roman baths, the birth of a monument. Public bathhouses were becoming popular in America and Europe at the time. Some were simple pools, while others were more elegant. But most of them catered mainly to wealthy citizens. Adolf Sutro did not want that. His bathhouse would welcome everyone, rich or poor, local or traveler, young or old. In 1888, Sutro announced a design competition, offering $500, a large sum then, to the winning architects. The winners were C.J. Colley and Emil S. Lemmy, the same architects who had helped him rebuild the second Cliff House. What they designed, guided by Sutro's imagination, was extraordinary. It was not just a pool, it was a monument, a palace, an engineering miracle built where land and water constantly battled each other. Building the impossible palace. The construction of the Sutro Baths began in the early 1890s, and for most people in San Francisco, the project looked unbelievable. The Cove, where Adolf Sutro wanted to place his enormous glass palace, wasn't peaceful or convenient. It was a wild, rocky pocket of coastline, constantly pounded by ocean waves. High tides swept in with tremendous force. Low tides left behind slippery seaweed and piles of stones. Few engineers of the time would have dared to build anything there. But Adolf Sutro was not like other men. He had solved engineering challenges deep beneath the earth. He had built a tunnel that people had once called impossible. Controlling the Pacific Ocean, at least in one small cove, didn't scare him. In fact, it excited him. To bring his vision to life, Sutro and his workers designed an elaborate underground system to manage the ocean water. They carved passageways and tunnels into the rock beneath the cliffs. These tunnels were engineered so that waves could rush in during high tide and naturally fill the pools with millions of gallons of fresh salt water. And when the tides dropped too low, they used giant pumps that moved 6,000 gallons of water per minute to keep the pools full. This wasn't just clever engineering. This was genius. Without these systems, the baths would have been impossible. The ocean itself became the heart of the building, filling, refreshing, and cleaning the pools. Still, the challenges didn't stop there. The foundation required enormous strength, since the building had to withstand the constant pounding of waves and storms. Workers brought in tons of rock to stabilize the structure. They even built tracks inside a nearby cave, the same cave people hike near today, to move stone from local quarries. Cart after cart rolled through the darkness, delivering the materials needed to create the massive base. Then came the breakwater, a huge wall built of rock and concrete that stood between the baths and the open ocean. Without it, one big wave could have torn the structure apart. But with it, the building had a fighting chance against the Pacific's power. Even so, the breakwater had to be repaired again and again. Nature never stopped testing Sutro's creation. And then finally, the main building rose, a glass palace by the sea. When the structure was completed, people could hardly believe their eyes. Covering 3 acres, an enormous size for any building at the time, the Sutro Baths were like nothing America had ever seen. The roof was made of glass. Massive iron arches lifted sheets of glass high into the air so sunlight could pour inside. When the sun hit the structure just right, the entire building shimmered like crystal. From far away, it looked like a dream rising out of the ocean mist. Inside, the light filtered through the glass, bouncing off the pools and dancing across the walls. The whole place felt warm, bright, and full of life, even when the weather outside was chilly or foggy. People walking inside for the first time often stopped in complete amazement. The sound of waves echoed faintly from beneath the structure. The salty smell of the ocean blended with the warm air from the heated pools. It felt like a magical combination of nature and human invention, and the details were stunning. There were 7 swimming pools, arranged in steps that flowed naturally toward the ocean. 6 pools were filled with filtered salt water, each at a different temperature. Some were cool and refreshing, others were pleasantly warm, and one single pool was filled with fresh water for people who preferred a different kind of swim. Around the pools, dozens of staircases twisted and climbed up to balconies and walkways. The floors gleamed. The metal beams overhead arched gracefully, like the inside of a giant ship. And everywhere you went, people were laughing, splashing, running, or simply sitting and soaking in the atmosphere. The Sutro Baths were not just big, they were breathtaking. A playground for everyone. Inside the Sutro Baths, the possibilities seemed endless. There were diving boards that launched people into the air. Water slides curved into the pools. Trapezes hung above the water, where brave swimmers could swing and drop into the pool below. Some pools even had floating platforms and trampolines. For visitors who didn't want to swim, there was just as much to enjoy. A wide promenade wrapped around the pools, giving people a perfect place to stroll and people watch. Families walked arm in arm, teenagers gathered with their friends, and older adults sat on benches enjoying the warmth inside the enormous glass building. And then there was the museum, perhaps the most surprising part of all. Adolf Sutro had traveled around the world, and everywhere he went, he collected fascinating objects. Instead of keeping them in a private mansion, he put them on display in the baths. The museum showcased Egyptian mummies, stuffed animals, rare plants, unusual stones, scientific specimens, and cultural artifacts from dozens of places. Visitors could spend hours wandering the exhibits before hopping into a pool. Besides the museum, Sutro included 500 private dressing rooms, a 2,700-seat amphitheater for competitions and special events, club rooms for large gatherings, restaurants that served meals so visitors could stay all day. It was part swimming center, part museum, part amusement hall, and part community gathering space. And the best part? It was affordable. Sutro believed deeply in making luxury available to everyone, not just the rich. The streetcar ride to the baths cost 5 cents, and admission to swim cost 25 cents. That was low enough for almost anyone to afford, even families who struggled with money. On opening day in 1896, the Sutro Baths were packed with thousands of excited visitors. Newspapers described the scene with glowing praise. For working families who lived in crowded neighborhoods or tough living conditions, the baths were like entering a magical palace. Everything felt grand, clean, and full of opportunity. Many families said visiting the Sutro Baths became one of the happiest memories of their childhoods. In interviews, Adolf Sutro often said that even the baths of ancient Rome, famous for their luxury, could not compare to what he had created. And in many ways, he was right. No other bathhouse in the world combined engineering, art, science, recreation, and community the way Sutros did. To Sutro, this wasn't simply entertainment. It was, as he called it, health-giving amusement, a place where bodies became stronger, minds became brighter, and spirits became lighter. He knew a sudden change after Sutro's death, but something changed very quickly. In 1898, only 2 years after the Sutro Baths opened, Adolf Sutro passed away. The dreamer who had imagined the impossible fought through years of challenges and spent his personal fortune to give the public a place of wonder was suddenly gone. His heirs inherited the baths, the cliff house, the gardens, and the land. But they did not have his passion, his engineering mind, or his ability to run such a massive and expensive operation. Keeping the baths open became a struggle almost immediately. The building was huge. Everything required constant repair. The furnaces that heated the pools, the pumps that moved salt water, the glass that cracked in storms, the wood and metal that wore out over time. The ocean never rested, and that meant neither could the owners. To attract guests and make money, Sutro's family organized events. They hosted swimming competitions, circus-style acts, and even beauty pageants. From time to time, it worked. In 1913 and 1914, the baths gained national attention when champion swimmers from Hawaii broke world records there. For a short while, the spotlight returned, but problems waited around the corner. World War I changed the nation. People struggled through difficult times, and recreation wasn't a priority. Then came the Great Depression in the 1930s, one of the darkest financial periods in American history. Families barely had enough money for basic needs, and leisure activities were cut from their budgets. The Sutro Baths, once packed with thousands, now stood partly empty, and the costs continued to rise. The building wasn't just large, it was too large. No matter how many visitors came, it never seemed to bring in enough money to cover its enormous expenses. The baths were slowly becoming a financial burden, and this was only the beginning of their long decline. Reinvention, struggle, and a fight against time. As the 1930s arrived, the Sutro Baths stood at a crossroads. The once brilliant palace of glass and water was struggling to stay alive. The building was still massive and impressive, but its glory was fading. The constant repairs, the cost of heating the pools, and the never-ending war with the ocean were draining the owner's finances. If something didn't change soon, the baths would shut down completely. It was during this difficult period that Adolf G. Sutro, the grandson of Adolf Sutro, stepped forward with a bold plan. He wanted to revive the baths by transforming them into something new, something that could capture the imagination of modern visitors. He believed that people wanted more than just swimming pools. They wanted entertainment, excitement, and a variety of activities. So the younger Sutro began an ambitious remodeling project, a new vision turning baths into an amusement haven. The renovation started with removing several of the original pools. These saltwater pools had been the heart of the complex, but they required constant pumping, heating, and cleaning. Instead of trying to maintain them, Adolf G. Sutro replaced them with new attractions, basketball courts, dance floors, and spaces for different events. He even added an indoor beach, complete with sand, right inside the building. Workers trucked in loads of sand from real beaches and spread it across a large section of the floor. Visitors could walk barefoot across the warm sand without ever stepping outside. This addition was one of the most unusual features the baths ever saw, and many people came just to experience the novelty. Adolf G. Sutro's idea was simple but clever. If swimming alone wasn't enough to bring crowds, then variety might. He wanted to offer something for everyone, no matter their age or interests. The remodeled building now offered basketball games, dancing areas, exhibitions and special events, the famous indoor beach, public gatherings and festivals. He hoped this fresh wave of entertainment would breathe life back into the enormous structure. For a short time, his plan seemed to work. Attendance picked up. Families returned. Events drew crowds. People who lived in San Francisco during the 1930s and 1940s remembered the baths not just as a swimming center, but as a lively social space filled with music, games, and community gatherings. But underneath the excitement, the problems had not disappeared. They were only hidden for a while. A building too big to save. The biggest issue of all was simply the size of the Sutro Baths. The building was almost unbelievably large. Just heating the water for the pools took an enormous amount of energy. Maintaining the glass roof required constant attention. The ocean continued to batter the walls, threatening the structure during every major storm. The furnaces, pipes, and pumps were aging and needed constant repair. Operating the complex cost far more money than it earned. Even though the new attractions brought in more people, the income still couldn't keep up with the expenses. And as time went on, fewer families came. The country faced wars, economic challenges, and major cultural changes. The younger generation found new forms of entertainment. Ice skating rinks, movie theaters, and nightclubs grew in popularity. The glowing magic of the Sutro Baths began to feel old-fashioned. By 1952, the situation was dire. The owners could barely keep the doors open. The structure was worn down. The salt water had corroded metal beams. Parts of the building required expensive repairs. The heating systems were breaking. The floors needed work. Everything demanded attention, and the money simply wasn't there. It seemed as though the Sutro Baths, once a symbol of hope, imagination, and joy, were about to fade away forever. And then, at the last possible moment, a lifeline appeared. A new owner, a new hope. In 1952, the baths were purchased by George Whitney, a well-known businessman who owned the famous Playland amusement park nearby and the Cliff House. Whitney was an energetic, optimistic entrepreneur who believed entertainment should be accessible and fun. He had a talent for turning old attractions into successful businesses. Whitney had a bold idea to save the Sutro Baths. Instead of trying to keep the pools running, which had proven far too expensive, he converted the remaining space into a giant ice skating rink. Ice rinks were becoming very trendy in the 1950s, and Whitney believed the baths could thrive if they offered something fresh and appealing. And he was right. The new ice rink became a hit. Families came for weekend skating. Couples went for date nights. Teenagers flocked there with friends. Skaters glided across the ice to bright music echoing throughout the huge building. For a while, it felt as though the Sutro Baths had come back to life. But this revival didn't last forever. The slow decline. When George Whitney died, his family inherited his properties. Unlike Whitney, they were not eager to operate large entertainment complexes. The land around the baths had become incredibly valuable, and real estate developers were eager to purchase it. One by one, the Whitneys sold pieces of the property. Soon, developers began considering big plans for the site. They imagined high-rise condominiums, shopping centers, and modern buildings that would bring in huge profits. The ruins of the baths were old-fashioned, costly, and difficult to manage. In the eyes of the new owners, the historic structure didn't fit the future they wanted. By the early 1960s, the decision had been made. The Sutro Baths would be demolished. The iconic glass palace, the grand pools, and the historic structure would be torn down. In their place, modern developments would rise. The era of the Sutro Baths was coming to a close. But before demolition could begin, something unexpected and devastating happened. Fire on the Pacific. On June 26, 1966, a massive fire broke out inside the Sutro Baths. Flames spread quickly through the wooden portions of the old structure. The fire grew hotter and hotter until it exploded through the building. The metal beams twisted, the glass shattered, smoke billowed across the coastline. Crowds gathered on nearby cliffs, watching as the once glorious palace burned. Within hours, the building was destroyed. The fire was later declared arson, meaning someone had set it on purpose. Many people suspected that it had been burned to clear the land more easily or to collect insurance money, but no one was ever arrested and no one ever confessed. To this day, the cause of the fire remains a mystery, adding to the haunting history of the site. What had once been the largest indoor swimming complex in the world, the pride of Adolf Sutro, was now nothing more than a pile of smoldering ruins. The developers gave up. The land sat empty. The ocean wind blew across the remains, eroding them piece by piece. Rain filled the old pools, crabs scuttled across the stones. What had been a lively, joyful place was now quiet and ghostly. The glory was gone. But the story was not over. Ruins, rediscovery, and the legacy of a lost dream. In the years after the devastating fire of 1966, the Sutro Baths no longer resembled the shimmering palace they once were. Without its glass roof, without the warm glow of sunlight entering the vast interior, and without laughter echoing through its halls, the building slowly faded into the landscape. The tides rolled in and out of the remains, washing over broken concrete and rusted metal. The ocean, which had once been the lifeblood of the baths, now helped erase them. Developers who once planned grand construction projects lost interest after the fire. The idea of building condominiums or a shopping center on the unstable, ocean-beaten cliffs became too risky, and the cost of clearing the ruins was far more expensive than anyone wanted to pay. Over time, the charred pieces of the building were left untouched, allowing the sea and weather to continue their slow work. Visitors who wandered to the site found an eerie, almost otherworldly scene. Staircases that led nowhere, dark pools filled with green water, and the skeleton-like remains of walls standing at crooked angles. What had once been one of the most joyful places in San Francisco now looked like a forgotten world, swallowed by the coast. And yet, strangely, the ruins attracted people. Lots of people. A landscape reclaimed by nature. As the years passed, nature began to weave itself through the ruins. Moss grew thick on the stones. Wild plants sprouted from cracks in the cement. Birds perched on the old beams. Waves crashed rhythmically into the lower pools, filling them with foamy water every time the tide rose. The rusted metal beams, once bright and strong, now curved and bent like silent sculptures. For many visitors, the site felt like stepping into a real-life time capsule, the remains of a massive dream slowly being reclaimed by the natural world. On foggy days, the mist drifted between the broken foundations, giving the ruins a mysterious and almost magical atmosphere. Some people described it as peaceful, others found it haunting. Children climbed along the edges of the pools. Teenagers explored the tunnels and rocky pathways. Artists, photographers, and writers were drawn to the site because of its dramatic, moody beauty. Every piece of concrete seemed to tell a story about a glory that once existed. Every fallen beam whispered memories of the thousands who had walked through the baths during its prime. Even though the grand structure was gone, the presence of Adolf Sutro's imagination still lingered in the air. A place worth saving. By the late 1970s, the ruins of the Sutro Baths had become a beloved landmark, not because of their size or luxury, but because of what they represented: the rise and fall of a dream, the power of nature, and the history of San Francisco itself. Recognizing the importance of the site, the National Park Service stepped in. In 1980, the land surrounding the baths was purchased and added to the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, a huge network of parks and protected lands along the coast. This decision ensured that the remains of the Sutro Baths would be preserved instead of being bulldozed or developed. This was a turning point in the bath story. After decades of decline, the site was finally protected. Workers cleared dangerous debris, stabilized walking paths, and created safe areas for visitors to explore. The ruins became part of a larger trail system connected to the Land's End area and the historic Cliff House. Artifacts from the baths, especially items from Sutro's museum collection, were moved to San Francisco State University, where they are now stored, studied, and preserved. Some pieces, like ancient artworks and geological specimens, had survived fires and storms, making them valuable windows into both history and Sutro's personal interests. Today, the site is open year-round, and anyone can wander through the remains of the baths at their own pace, walking through the ghost of a wonder. Modern visitors who explore the Sutro Baths often describe the experience as both beautiful and emotional. The moment you step onto the pathway overlooking the ruins, the view can take your breath away. The Pacific Ocean stretches endlessly in front of you, its waves pounding against the rocks. Wind sweeps across the cliffs, carrying the scent of salt and blooming coastal plants. Down below, the skeleton of the Sutro Baths rests quietly. People walk along the concrete edges of what used to be the pools. They stand on the old foundations and stare into the murky water where swimmers once dove. Some visitors sit on the ruins in silence, imagining the bright lights, warm air, and lively crowds that once filled the space. Others bring cameras to capture the dramatic mix of nature and history. It is common for visitors to ask, how was something this huge ever built? And how could something so grand completely disappear? Those questions often lead people to learn about Adolf Sutro, the engineer, entrepreneur, and dreamer who changed San Francisco forever. The baths, even in ruin, have a power that is hard to describe. It's as if the entire site still carries the memory of its past. The cheers from swimming competitions, the clatter of diving boards, the hum of heating pipes, the laughter of families, and the quiet pride of the man who built it all. Even though the glass palace is gone, the echo of its spirit remains, a reflection of San Francisco's soul. The story of the Sutro Baths is much larger than a tale about a swimming complex. It reflects something deeper about San Francisco itself. The baths symbolize ambition, the boldness to dream big, innovation, using engineering to battle nature, community, creating beauty for ordinary people, change, facing challenges and adapting, loss, the disappearance of something once loved, memory, how stories remain even when buildings do not. San Francisco is a city shaped by daring ideas, by people who dream beyond what seems possible. Adolf Sutro embodied that spirit. He built gardens, a magnificent restaurant, a tunnel that saved miners' lives, and a glass palace that welcomed people from all backgrounds. But the city is also a place of constant transformation. Fires, earthquakes, economic hardships, and shifting tastes have erased many historic landmarks. The Sutro Baths became one of these lost giants, a reminder that even the greatest structures can vanish, and yet, in their loss, they gained something new. The ruins became an open-air museum, a place of imagination, a landmark that encourages people to look back in time and wonder about what once stood there, why the ruins still matter. Even though the baths are long gone, people continue to visit because the ruins tell a powerful story. They show what one person's imagination can create. They show how nature eventually reclaims everything. They show how communities change, grow, and move forward. Standing among the ruins, you can hear the waves crash loudly against the rocks, just as they did more than a century ago. If you listen closely, you can almost picture the sound of children splashing, teenagers daring each other on trapezes, and visitors walking along the promenade. You can imagine the warm glow of sunlight shining through the glass roof. You can see the shadows of swimmers diving into the cool saltwater pools. The Sutro Baths may be gone, but the memories and images they inspire are still alive. Many people say that walking through the ruins feels like reading a story written in stone. One chapter rising with hope, one filled with triumph, one shadowed by struggle, and one marked by loss. But the final chapter is still being written by every person who visits. Each visitor becomes part of the living memory of the Sutro Baths. The final chapter. What the Sutro Baths teach us today. The Sutro Baths story, from their rise to their fall, is more than just a tale about a magnificent building. It is a story about people, about dreamers, workers, families, and the city that surrounded them. Today, the ruins stand quietly beside the ocean, shaped by over a century of wind and waves. But even in silence, they continue to speak. They remind us that history is not just found in museums or dusty books. Sometimes it sits out in the open, waiting for us to explore it. Visitors walking through the ruins often pause and stare out at the Pacific. Some see only broken, weathered concrete, but others see something more, an echo of joy, laughter, and excitement from long ago. You can almost imagine children running across the walkways, swimmers jumping into the saltwater pools, and the warm glow of the sun shining through the glass roof. The Sutro Baths may no longer stand tall, but their message remains powerful. The meaning behind the ruins. What can we learn from the rise and fall of this gigantic glass palace? Quite a lot. 1. Dreams can shape a city. The baths were a result of Adolf Sutro's incredible imagination. He didn't just dream small, he dreamed bigger than anyone thought possible. He brought bold ideas to life and changed the shape and story of San Francisco. One man's creativity transformed a rocky cove into a world-famous landmark. 2. Luxury can be shared. Sutro believed strongly that everyday people deserved access to beauty, culture, and joy. He didn't build the baths for kings, millionaires, or exclusive clubs. He built them for everyone. His low entry fees proved that he cared deeply about creating a community space where rich and poor could come together. 3. Nature always has the last word. Despite all of Sutro's genius, the ocean remained a powerful force. The tides, storms, and weather constantly battled the structure. Nature reminds us that even the strongest human creations cannot last forever. 4. History is fragile. The baths were once filled with thousands of people. They were one of the largest buildings of their time. Yet today, almost nothing remains. This teaches us that even grand achievements can vanish quickly if they aren't protected or maintained. 5. Memories can outlive monuments. Even though the baths are gone, their story still inspires millions of people. Students, tourists, historians, artists, and families continue to learn about the baths and share their legacy. In the end, sometimes memories last longer than stone or steel. What it feels like to stand where history happened. If you visit the Sutro Baths today, you'll notice how the ruins blend with the natural landscape. The waves crash loudly, echoing between the remaining walls. Wildflowers bloom along the cliffs. The air smells like salt and wind. Sometimes the fog rolls in, making the ruins look like they're appearing from another world. There is something emotional and strangely peaceful about standing there. You can feel the weight of time. You can sense the lives that once filled the place with energy and movement. You can imagine the cheers during swimming competitions or the music drifting through the air. For many visitors, the baths offer more than a history lesson. They offer reflection. Standing among the ruins reminds people that life is full of change. It helps them appreciate the present moment. It shows how quickly things can rise and fall, and how important it is to protect what matters. A tribute to a dreamer. The legacy of Adolf Sutro. No story of the Sutro. Baths is complete without remembering the man behind them, Adolf Sutro. He arrived in America with little money but enormous ambition. He solved mining problems that others thought impossible. He became rich but never forgot ordinary people. He bought land, built gardens, rebuilt the cliff house, and opened his home to the public. And he created the greatest bathhouse the world had ever seen. His death marked the beginning of the bath's decline, but his vision continues to inspire. The gardens of Sutro Heights, the cliff house, and the ruins of the baths all carry pieces of his legacy. These places remind people of his belief that beauty belongs to everyone, not just a few. If Sutro were alive today, he would likely be proud that people still visit the ruins, still wonder about his invention, and still appreciate the spirit behind his work. Why the Sutro Baths still matter in the modern world. Even though the Sutro Baths no longer stand, and even though the giant glass roof shattered decades ago, the site continues to attract thousands of visitors every year. Why? Because the baths represent something timeless. They represent the courage to dream bigger. They represent the beauty of public spaces. They represent the idea that community matters. They represent the struggle to hold on to history. They represent the unstoppable power of nature. In a world where many historic places have been torn down or forgotten, the Sutro Baths remind us that stories can survive even when buildings don't. The ruins teach us to value our past and to protect the sites that hold meaning for future generations. The final reflection. As the sun sets over the Pacific Ocean, the ruins of the Sutro Baths turn golden in the fading light. Waves crash into the pools, washing over stones that have survived storms, fires, and decades of change. Visitors stand quietly, watching the ocean sparkle. Some take photos, some sit on the rocks and breathe in the salty air. Some listen to the roar of the waves and imagine the sound of splashing water from years ago. It is easy to picture the baths glowing under the glass roof, filled with movement, laughter, and life. It is easy to imagine Adolf Sutro standing proudly on a balcony, watching families enjoy the place he created for them. The baths may be gone, but the feelings they inspired have not disappeared. They live on in the memories of the city, in the stories passed down, and in the people who explore the ruins today. The rise and fall of the Sutro Baths teaches us that history is alive. It changes, it breathes, it grows and fades. But as long as someone remembers, as long as someone walks the paths where thousands once walked, the story continues. The ending. The Sutro Baths began as a dream built on imagination, engineering, and hope. They rose from a rocky cove to become one of the greatest public attractions in America. They brought joy to thousands. They battled the ocean and survived fires, storms, and economic hardships. And even though they eventually fell into ruin, their spirit lives on. Today, the ruins stand as a reminder that even the most incredible creations can fade, but the dreams behind them never truly vanish. They stay alive in the hearts of those who visit, those who learn, and those who imagine what once was. Standing on the cliffs, looking out over the Pacific, you can almost hear faint echoes of laughter, splashing, music, and joy. And in that moment, you realize something powerful. The Sutro Baths may have crumbled, but their story will never be forgotten.